clap. Okay, everybody. So thank you so much for coming. I see a few new faces. I see a few faces that I have seen before. I'm really thankful to have the opportunity to get to talk to you about nonprofits today. Today is a very special day because I have a guest speaker, and she's a woman that I admire a lot. I did meet her through my nonprofit work, and so I'll do the proper introduction when it's the time. But you really guys are in for a treat today because we have a wonderful speaker joining us, and that's Deborah Hertz. So thank you for being here, Deborah. I will open the PowerPoint. Hi, Sayed. How are you?
Hi, Yvonne. Really good. I'm sorry I couldn't be in person today, but I'm here.
Yeah, for everybody to know, Sayed is the president of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So thank you so much for coming, Sayed. It's really nice to have you here. And I'm sure you get a lot from learning about nonprofits and so on. So it's good to
I
see you.
couldn't really miss today's presentation.
Awesome. So do you want to say a couple of things about the chamber before we get started?
Oh my God, a lot of things has happened this year. We're growing exponentially, and for people that don't know, we are collaborating with City of Norwalk, as well as the redevelopment agency here in Norwalk, and we're trying to bring all the information and all the workshops, not only to for-profit businesses, but also to nonprofits. We currently, this is like one series that we did with Yvonne and the redevelopment agency, one workshop a month for the whole year. And on the contrary, we're doing 12 workshops if you think about it, or 10 to 12. But on the profit side, in case that you have anybody that is willing or is interested in opening their business, or just like grow their business, we're also having on a bi-monthly uh, um, um, schedule workshop that is focused just for profit businesses. So this is just one thing that we do as a chamber of commerce. We're trying to support all the Hispanic community, and try to do that in Spanish. I know this workshop is in English because we're trying to bring all the nonprofits. But again, our mission as the chamber is to bring all the resources and try to help all the resource providers that serve our community with the best knowledge that we have, and any resources that the city may bring to you. So thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for all that you do with our community, not only with the Hispanics, but in Norwalk in general. And I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, and follow the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in our social pages because we have a lot of events going on, networking. I heard this week that we are going to have a really good speed networking event in November. So, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll open up this PowerPoint and we'll get started. All right. There we go. So let me hide this interview. Okay, awesome. So today we are talking about the nonprofit cycle and how do nonprofit works. Deborah is here to do most of the presentation because she's an expert in nonprofits and she does a lot of work with nonprofits. But we have a little intro, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we have done so far. And, we'll have a few tips for people that are here, like housekeeping items, right in the beginning, people that are here and people that are at home. So let's see, let me move this bar that is always on the way. All right. So this year we started this series of workshops addressing first the person that works in the nonprofit environment or in the business, right? Talking about how to approach the new year with a sense of self-care and also a sense of boundaries between work and home so that they could balance a little bit more their personal lives with their work lives. And then we moved into organizational culture and how to align your culture in the organization. We learn about conflict management, transitioning from worker to management, what it means for a person to do that, and what kind of things you have to consider when you are moving up into the ladder of being in business. We talked about conflict management. And the last presentation we had in July was about outstanding performance reviews. Today we are going to be talking about nonprofits specifically and how the cycle of a nonprofit works. And in the next session, we will have a session on nonprofit boards. So the most people that work in nonprofit really get to understand the role of a board. Sometimes tends to be like a big question mark. What are these people here doing? And they're telling us what to do, but I don't really understand the relationship. And at the end, in November, we are going to end up with a special presentation on BIPOC community, specifically concentrated on how to serve immigrants. So a very good piece as well, and what are the kind of considerations to have. So you are welcome to join us in the future presentations. And if you want to watch the old presentations, they are all on the website. With the links that Katie sends you, you will be able to go to the website and access the other presentations we have done. So basically, our agenda today is just talk a little bit about housekeeping items and what things to observe while we are presenting. And then we will talk about how the nonprofits came about, what's the history, that's a very short piece. And then Deborah will take over and she was going to talk about Nonprofits 101 and then the nonprofit cycles. So what can you expect today? First of all, lots of conversation. This is what, these workshops are meant to be for people to share their own knowledge, because we all have this collective knowledge and we all learn from one another, and sharing your experiences or what you think or what your questions are is essential for us to have a meaningful discussion. We also are going to do a lot of learning, and there is a certain opportunity for introspection as we do these workshops, right? Like, what is it that I'm contributing to make this organization better? What is it that I'm contributing to my own personal life, my relationship with my coworkers, and so on? And then a sense of community, knowing that you are not alone, that many of the challenges you face when you are going about your work, other people face as well. So it's an important piece, knowing that. And we do, first of all, we do not tell you what to do. You decide what to do on your own. And we use collective wisdom. So meaning that all of us will share with one another what we know, and we will leave the workshop, so hopefully knowing a little bit more. A principle that I like to use, and maybe it's not so relevant to this workshop specifically, but in the workshops we have done in the past, is that we all have agency to change things around us. Even when we think, and especially when we were talking about boundaries and self-care, and we were talking about communication and management of conflict at work, is that we all have the possibility of change things around us. We all have that power. Even if the final change is to say, this is not the right place for me, you always have the choice of changing things. The other principle that I like to observe is that we all learn from each other, and the participation is critical. And when we disagree, what we wanted to do is to be a safe space in which people can talk. So usually, if you don't agree with somebody, what we use is the yes and kind of proposal, right? Yes, I acknowledge what you're saying, and this is my viewpoint. I usually ask people what other kind of principles they like to observe when we are doing these workshops. Anything that is particularly important to you regarding the workshop itself, not the learning, but how we interact with each other. Like, you always have good ones. Save me, because nobody's speaking yet. So what kind of principles would you like to observe during the workshop, right? That is not about the learning, but about our interaction with each other.
Well, the older I get, I would say I grew up very shy. So I'm always learning and adapting. So I think it's very important for us to be able to interact and to, for the right word, where being able to criticize, but don't take it as criticism. What's the word? Not criticize, but
Constructive.
yeah,
Feedback.
Feedback. There you go. So very slow motion. But
We'll mix you
so
up.
I'm learning that too, and sometimes it's that I don't know, like take a second or two when somebody says something. Don't like one of my favorite saying is to react as negative, to respond as positive. So I always try to take a step back. But we're all emotional beings sometimes. It doesn't work with our family. But I'm always learning and I like people because I'm coming out of my shell.
Thank you. Fantastic. All right. Anything else? Real quick. Yes. You look like you're coming out.
Don't even look at her.
I think just giving grace to each person as they speak. I think we all come from different perspectives, whether it's age or location and experiences. And so, I think to your point of learning from each other, but just giving grace, and being open to receiving information that may be different from what you've already experienced.
Awesome. Thank you. What's your first name?
Julie.
Julie.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All right, so let's move on. I just want to say that I'm very grateful to have you all here in the room and to have the people at home that are connecting from wherever they are. Tips for participating remotely. If you want, you can have your camera off. You don't have to have it on all the time. And also, just keep your cell phone in mute. If you have any questions, just chat it out, because like in between the screen, all the screens we have going on here in the chat, it's really hard to see if somebody's making a comment that is important. So for people at home, if you want to say something, just interrupt us and we can go ahead and do that. There is food here for the people that are in the room. The restroom is over there. After the presentation, you will get a copy of the PowerPoint and the supporting documents. And we'll also receive a survey asking you, how you felt the presentation went. And also a link to the recording of this presentation. So I usually do this icebreaker, very easy. It's not difficult at all. Then I don't force people to do it, but I like to have at least 3 answers. On what and this is for the people that were here in the previous workshops. They can answer. What did you do differently since our last presentation? Is there anything that you felt that you learned that you were able to apply? Or you can answer, if you are here for the first time, what do you hope to learn today? So I'll get started in the room because it's my easiest part. So if anybody wants to share something. Lisa.
So I read the thin book of trust that was on Yvonne's reading list for the workshop, and it was a very easy read. And I've been seeing what I can do to implement some of the items in there to help me with my communication.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. Anybody? You just go ahead.
My name is Sylvia, and this is the first time I come, and I'm looking forward to learn more about the nonprofit cycle, since I worked in a small nonprofit in Bridgeport, and every chance that we get to learn a little more, the organization has grown in a short period of time. So sometimes we just have to keep up with what's going on, but we still need to learn a lot more. So that's what I'm here.
And what organization are you?
It's called Connecticut Worker Center.
Oh, great.
Oh, you are with Connecticut Worker Center. That's awesome. Good. We should connect.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Great. Anybody that is remote that would like to share either what they have done differently or what do they hope to learn today?
I'll go. My name is Consuelo, and I would like to learn within the non-for-profit cycle. How do we effectively communicate with our board of directors?
Awesome. Great, Consuelo. And we may be able to address some of it today, but for sure
Mm-hmm.
on the next workshop. That's because that's the theme.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else remote that would like to share? I see somebody, Gisela, looks like she's trying to
Yes,
unmute herself.
hi. Yes, my name is Gisela. I'm working in Catholic Charities. I'm a case manager. And yes, I participate in one very good about self-care. And in the communications in between our and the one that is today nonprofit cycle. I think is for me it's important to know what others do and communicate, to share experiences and to try to help others, our clients as a team.
Awesome.
That's
Thank
what
you,
I hope.
Gisela.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. And I will have a question for you regarding why, like the people that are in nonprofit already, why is it that you work on nonprofit? What motivates you to do that? So start thinking about what can you share with that. But we have a couple of slides. Hi, Sharon, how are you? It's nice to see you. So we have a couple of slides that talk about the history of nonprofits. I'm always curious about knowing how things got started. So I dig into the internet a little bit and found a few different resources that talk about how nonprofits started. So it's so funny because the nonprofit work started really in the United Kingdom. And in the 1960s, there was a statute that became law in 1601 that was the Elizabethan status of charity. And it was a law that was passed with the intention of providing certain break on taxes for landowners, like powerful landowners, who were doing some work to help the community at the time. So it's very interesting because these activities back then are many of the activities that we continue supporting through nonprofits. But the goals was to, for example, people that were helping sick soldiers and mariners at the time could get a little bit of a tax break. Also, relief of the aged and poor people, repair of public works, education for orphans, houses of correction, meaning prisons, and also marriages of poor maids. So they were like providing help for people, for poor maids that needed to get married, and giving them support. And in general, providing help for people of low income. The majority of the activities back in England and here in the colonies happened through churches at the time, and landowners that had a lot of wealth. So they were getting this tax break, but that wasn't exactly like the tax break that nonprofit get today, but that was what was happening in the moment. And because these activities were happening mainly through the church, and the church was really connected to the crown, right, to the government in England, because they were getting tax money as well. One of the things that happened here in the American Revolution was when the separation of the state and church happened, then nonprofit became absolutely independent from the government back then. One of the famous cases for the Superior Court that had to do with civil and liberty activities was Dartmouth College versus Woodward. And what the law ended up deciding was that the government will have nothing to do with the nonprofit sector back then. The nonprofit sector then switched from being mostly purely based in the church into becoming corporations. Another important thing to know is that back then, and during the 17 and 1800s, most of the people that were receiving this kind of charity status or whatever it was at the time were white, rich landowners. So the charity status was given very exclusively to people, whether, really the decision making was whether the government liked you or not. And of course, because of the times, it wasn't available to people of color. There was back then no possibility. It was mostly white men that were receiving this kind of a status. Between the 1700s and the 1800s, the first nonprofit organizations of the United States were related to helping people of color after the slavery ended. It was mainly to support their incorporation into the rest of the community. So we had a few nonprofits that were specifically helping to make that integration happen. And then the first modern nonprofit organization was the Peabody Education Fund, with the purpose of integrating the poor, white, and the formerly enslaved people of the South. The United Way was funded as a religious organization in 1887, and it was called back then the Charity Organizations of Society. So that was the 1700s and the 1800s. Then in the 1900s, the charitable purposes were expanded to include arts and museums. The reason why that happened, it was because Jane Smithson from the Smithsonian Institute, I'm sure you heard about it because it does still exist, had no descendants. He only had a nephew, and the nephew died. So he had nobody to leave money to, and he decided to start this charity to leave the money behind to help the arts and museums. In 1913, the tax status became formal for the United States nonprofits. And in 1917, when the taxes were being very high because of World War I, the tax deduction for people that were giving money to charities became a law. So then there was an increase on charitable trusts. There were a lot of people that were getting rich in the country, like Carnegie and the Rockefellers. And they were the ones that started like large foundations to be able to, leave some of the money behind to help some of the community. And then the first nonprofit organization that was designated by the IRS as a nonprofit was the Ford Foundation. So as you can see, it's all these very wealthy people that got a lot of money because of the war and the railroads and everything that was happening at the moment. Between the 1960s and the 2000s, there was an increase on federal funding to give through grants to nonprofit organizations. And then in the 1980s, during Reagan's administration, what happened is that governments shift to give money to organizations as a reimbursement for services, like, for example, medical reimbursement and not. And so that's when nonprofits started becoming more tangled with governmental contracts and so on. And then in the 1980s and 2000s, it became a big explosion of growth between nonprofit organizations, and non-religious organizations took over most of the area of the nonprofit. So it's quite a bit of an interesting history, I think. Today, nonprofits are functioning more like businesses, and businesses are adding more of nonprofit ideas into the way they work. So basically, the nonprofits have evolved quite a bit over the years. And then today we have these wonderful organizations that are doing their best to help the community. I included there 2 links, which were my main sources of information. One of them is a very good YouTube video by Professor Aaron Miller that explains how this all evolved. And then we have also the 15 historical nonprofit moments that you should know. So if you want to kind of take a look at that later, when you get the PowerPoints, you can look into that information. There is a lot out there, and this is kind of a compilation of what I found more meaningful for us to learn today. So before we move into our presenter, I wanted to ask you guys, what is it that motivates you to work and be part of a nonprofit? So I'll take volunteers. Yes.
Kiran, I'm with the Fairfield County Community Foundation, same way, Fairfield County Bakersdale. I'm sorry, reading about Fairfield County Community Foundation before I drove here. Yes, and I'm with Vladimir. My main goal for being part of the guild is to be part of the community of bakers. And there's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of making, which I believe is not only bringing out the creative side, but also gives a sense of, coming together for a bigger purpose.
Awesome. Thank you. And what's the mission of the organization?
I will let handle that.
It does to be perfect, just in general. What is it that it does?
It's basically a community space for basically just the creatives and people who want to get together, like things that share knowledge with one another. So it involves having a space and equipping it with equipment and tools that normally like one person wouldn't be able to afford on their own, but then having if you want, join together. And so there's part of it is the equipment, but part of it is like knowledge sharing. So,
Oh, that's fantastic. Where are you guys located?
it's at 27 right now.
Here in
Norwalk.
in Norwalk.
5 minutes.
Fantastic. You know, guys, this is a good opportunity for all of us to network with each other because we learn about the resources that are out there in the community. So we'll connect at the end. Make sure that we connect and we get your information as well. Anybody else that like to share?
So my name is Julie Foy. I'm from Odyssey Family Executive Center, which is also down the street. And I think what drives me to be part of nonprofit is the desire to empower and build community. And that is what we do at Odyssey Family Center is really helping individuals feel reconnected to their community, to create opportunities for empowerment, to sort of shift the cycle that they're currently in, and have the ability and resources to move forward and to grow.
Awesome. Can you give me an example of a program that does this?
Sure.
Sure.
So one of the programs that we have is our career institute. So having individuals who are interested in early childhood education, for example. So we have a 12-week program where they're able to take courses and getting more knowledge in early childhood education with the ability to then get their CDA and then move forward and take courses to get their certification so that they can eventually become preschool teachers. And this is all free. And so the ability to not only give people an opportunity to have employment, but then earn and get trained in an area of interest to them, but also to not have any cost, and then walking away no debt, but then also starting a job on their own, which is really, I think, is empowering for our families.
That's a fantastic mission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Is it only for Norwalk? It is for Norwalk, yes. Right now, we're growing. Our goal is to grow, but right now it's Norwalk.
Awesome. What is very interesting about nonprofits is that so many people are doing such a great work in the community, but then at the same time, seems like there's never enough for the needs that our community have, right? So I'm sure that one thing that people can relate to is I wish I could do more. I wish I could open another center. I wish I could, right? But one of the things that I always say is if you weren't there, right, nobody will have the help that you're providing right now. So that's a good way to look at it instead of thinking, we need more, we need more. What we do brings more than what it will happen if we weren't here. Thank you for sharing. Anybody remote that would like to share why they're in nonprofit? What is their personal mission?
Well, I can go.
Thank you, Sayed.
Well, you know what is my mission to see, more like a personal story and personal pursuit of one of my goals, right? And since I was really young, I wanted to start my own business. I went to school, graduate school for that, and then I realized that having a business is not only making money, but it's also having a lot of freedom of just liberty, freedom of be your own boss, freedom of time just to go be with your kids. But when reality is when you're a business owner, you don't really have that freedom, right? You're always working 24/7. So I soon realized that there is a mindset that needs to change. There is a lot of resources that we don't really take advantage of. And then at the end of the day, we just ended up being worse than taking a 40-hour-a-week job. So what I realized is, yes, one thing is to really have a really good business idea that is going to be profitable. And another thing is to really take that person, the entrepreneur, from being just a business owner to be an investor of his own company. So that difference on freedom really made me, be part of the chamber, try to help everybody how to take that step, not only in growing their business to the point that they can actually have a good life of it, but then really just putting people, processes, and softwares in place so they can actually step away from their business a little bit. And if they want, they can actually grow it or have another business or maybe retire early. So that if I can resume everything, in wanna help my community to work less and make more money. And that's it. If you really like have that desire of having your own business and you want to achieve that goal of being free for everything, is not only having a good product or service to sell, but it's also the mindset of having the good structure to make it grow so you can actually step away from the business. So that's what we are here, and everything that we do in the chamber, especially right now that I'm leading it, is really towards that goal. Maybe networking, meeting the right person, the right people that is going to help you catapult your business to the next level, or maybe meeting somebody that can help you and take over your business in case that you decide to, or just giving you all the workshops and grants that the city of Norwalk is providing to all of us. So really having all the opportunities and bringing people to have a good mindset for growth, and hopefully they can actually achieve their dreams. So that's a personal story right there, but it's really joined together with what I do here at the chamber.
Thank you, Sayed. And one thing that is interesting about the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce is a no-volunteer organization. So the board and everybody that is doing work there are volunteers. And so that is something that Deborah is going to talk about when nonprofits start, how do they start. So thank you, Sayed. Anybody else?
Can go. My name is Sabine, and I'm also a part of the Odyssey Family Executive Center. And for me, my parents were immigrants. So I definitely understand how it is to really learn about a new, environment, and just really helping my parents just learn about the state and everything, and the government and everything, and just translating and helping them understand how things work in America and everything. And for me, that's why I became a social worker, and just working in nonprofit has always been a thing for me, because the mission and vision always aligns. And that's what I love about the Odyssey Family Executive Center, because the mission and vision is really about empowering families. And all my life, basically, I had to really help a lot of undocumented families, low-income families, all those things, you name it. I mean, that's the field of social work, and that has always been my passion. So that's why I enjoy working in nonprofit.
Thank you, Sabine. Anybody else? Okay. Nobody at the Zoom meeting? Okay. So, one of the things that I hear over and over again from people that are in the nonprofit sector is that they are really people that want to give. Sometimes give back to the community. Sometimes they just want, they're natural people that give something to somebody else. They're not all for themselves and what they can make for their own personal wealth. There are people that are dedicated to really connecting with people in the community and trying to make other people's lives better. So kudos to you for being in the nonprofit work. It's not that easy at times. But one of the perks of being in nonprofit is that you get to meet great people. You get to meet good people that really want to do well, independently of how they work or what their personalities are. Deep in their hearts, everybody wants to do something for somebody else. So with that, I want to introduce my speaker, my invited speaker, because I have had the luck that through my work in nonprofit, I met her, and she decided that she was going to help me out today. Let me see. I have 2 slides here. I knew this was going to happen when I stopped sharing. Let's see. Okay. I have been super fortunate to get to meet her This is not moving. Just- Stop the share, close this one. Close it. Oh, bear with me, you guys in the at home, because I have a frozen computer screen situation going on now. But anyway, I will talk about Deborah in the meantime. I met her through our work here in nonprofit. One of the things that happened with Deborah is that she is a nonprofit guru. She's been in the area of nonprofit for a very long time. She's also a professor at Fordham University, and she teaches in the School of Social Work, correct, Deborah? So I'm really, really happy that she accepted to come here and help us out with this show. So if anybody needs to take a break, this is the right time, because
Good afternoon. Please inform that there is a session with an external consultant.
Get this off. And tags. And now we are going to open it again.
Please inform that there is a session with an external consultant on May 18th from 4:32.
Until they're not.
Technology is good until it's not, right? Okay, so we're gonna go back into our Zoom meeting. Share is really never fails. Here we go. Okay. Here we go.
Great.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for your patience.
Okay. So what we're going to talk about today is two things. We're going to talk about nonprofits in general, and we're going to talk about the life cycles of nonprofits, because both are really important in the work you do. But before we start, I know we've got Odyssey here. You had talked, I forget the name of your organization.
Fairfield County Makers Guild, and I'm gonna say it right this time.
Okay. And then we have
Sylvia, Connecticut Worker Center.
what other nonprofits do we have?
Oh, we're Norwalk Housing.
Norwalk Housing Authority. Anyone online? On the people online, where are you from? Let's see, they're putting it in the chat, maybe.
As
Open
Stephanie said,
Doors.
open doors.
Beautiful.
And then the Odyssey Family Executive Center.
The Odyssey Family Executive Center, the Hispanic Chamber of Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. So we have a lot of representatives from a lot of different nonprofits, which is great. And let's see if this wants to work now. Okay, here we go. So we're going to talk about nonprofits 101 and then the life cycles. Basically, if you look at this country, there are three sectors. There's the private sector, that's businesses. That's for-profit or hopefully for-profit businesses. There's the public sector, which is government. And then there's the social sector, which is the nonprofit. There are a few things I dislike in this world. One of them is the word nonprofit, because it is a complete misnomer. Okay. How are you going to move forward if you don't have if you have no profit? Okay. You need money to move forward. But one of the things that makes nonprofits different than from the private sector, especially, is that nonprofits have a mission that they are trying to achieve. And you look at all different nonprofits. These are just a couple of ones. I actually put Open Doors in there. So these are ones that we
Yeah.
might know,
Yeah.
right? These are kind of local or regional nonprofits that we may know and love.
Scheduled.
But what makes a nonprofit is that it has to,
Sorry, Deborah. See,
Oh.
we had news that you couldn't see the
Oh.
PowerPoint. Can you see the PowerPoint over there at home? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Sorry, Deborah.
that is, okay. We just move forward. Okay, so all nonprofits must pursue community benefit. We're going to talk about what that means in a minute, and that they have certain rules to adhere to maintain their nonprofit status. So if you look at what nonprofits are called, they're called the social sector, they're called NGOs, which is non-governmental, which when Yvonne was talking earlier, it's that difference between it's our sector and government. There's a fine line. So if a long time ago, I thought I'm going to work to make nobody call it the nonprofit sector. And I have better things to do. It's beyond me alone. So the difference between the nonprofit sector and the for-profit sector is nonprofits have to have a profit. Okay. If you're running in the red, there's only so long you can run in the red. But the difference is you have to reinvest that money into your mission. Whereas in the for-profit, if you have a profit, you give your profit away to your shareholders. If it's a small business, you can keep it for yourself. But nonprofits need to reinvest it in their mission. So whereas a sustainable for-profit needs to deliver a financial profit, a nonprofit also needs to have profit, but it also needs to deliver on its mission. If it does not deliver on its mission, what can happen? They can revoke your nonprofit status. There is an organization in this region that will go unnamed, that their nonprofit status has been revoked, and they continue to get money, and they just don't tell people that their nonprofit status has been revoked.
That's called profit.
It's called illegal, but for so if you look at the nonprofit, the defining characteristics of a nonprofit, number one, the IRS has to give you their seal of approval. And what that means is once the IRS gives you their seal of approval, you can start receiving money, and people can get tax breaks because of the money that they donate. Number two, you have to have an activity. It's not that you have a thought, it's that you're actually doing something. They're non-governmental. Okay, now there are public, private, quasi-governmental. We're not going to talk about that. There's this distinction between the nonprofit and the government. Again, the non-distribution constraint just is you cannot distribute your profits to a group of people. You need to reinvest your profits. Nonprofits are self-governing. Who governs a nonprofit?
The
Your board. That's it. And so that means, and we're going to talk about that more in October. They're voluntary. Yes.
I've always had a curiosity. It's nonprofit, it's voluntary, but the president or whoever's running it, they're getting paid. So how do they get away with labeling that when it's not?
So it's not volunteer as in no money. It's nobody is saying you have to do it. For example, if the government said this must be done, for example, public education. Everyone has the right to public education, right? So that is not a nonprofit. You can't have a nonprofit public education because that is mandatory. The government says has to exist. So and we can talk about the payment. Well, that's a philosophical thing. I'm not sure we're going to go into. But I will say a little bit. I will go into it a little bit. People say, you're a nonprofit, nobody should make money, blah blah blah. You want good people in your nonprofit? You know what you have to do? You have to pay for them. Okay, you want high quality, you pay for them. That's the bottom line. So we have to stop wringing our hands as nonprofits, and say, what do the people that you serve deserve? They deserve the best. Well, who's going to give them the best? You have to pay for that best. That's
Change name somehow.
I totally agree. You have to provide societal benefit. We're going to talk about what the areas of societal benefit are. And so right now we're going to decide, or we're going to talk about them. There are a couple, let's see. Nope, go back. Arts and culture. Education and research, environment, health. You can read all of these. What's the biggest nonprofit in Connecticut? Anyone want to guess? Huh? It's not religion.
Red Cross.
Nope.
United Way?
Hmm?
United Way?
Nope.
St. Vincent.
Nope.
Catholic.
Nope. Nope.
The hospital.
Yale Hospital. Okay.
No, that's a nonprofit.
It's a nonprofit.
They make more money.
So is Yale University.
Oh, now we're gonna get it.
So is Wesleyan University. Okay, so you look at these really grassroots organizations, and you look at these huge, billions and billions of dollars in endowment organizations. They have the same status. Okay, so, but in order to qualify as a nonprofit, you need to fall into one of these categories. Couple of facts. Number one, there are a lot of nonprofits in the United States. Yvonne had said that since the 1980s, there has been an explosion of nonprofits, and there have been. Most nonprofits are small. The nonprofits account for 5.7% of the US economy. Most people, or not most, 25% of all Americans have volunteered. And interestingly, total giving in nonprofits was 517 billion in 2021 and 499 billion in 2023. 22. What do you think happened between those 2 years? COVID. But what do you mean by COVID? COVID happened in 2020.
Right.
People gave a lot during COVID and then pulled back.
A lot of businesses shut down. Well,
People
never reopened.
Yeah.
And then people's budgets and everything else.
People
Money changed.
during COVID were they gave the biggest organization that they gave to during COVID, Feeding America. People didn't want people to be hungry. So basic needs. Most money comes from individuals. It doesn't come from corporations. It may come from foundations, but it comes from foundations who really, it is an individual's personal giving. Okay. And so, and you see, giving was strong in 2020 and 2021. It's not as strong right now. And I'm a consultant for nonprofits. That's what I do. I work nationally with organizations. And here's what I've heard a lot. And people were, nonprofits were patting themselves on the back. We came out of COVID so well. It's like, of course you did. You had PPP loans, you had ARPA, you had lots, it's not that you came out of COVID really well. It's what are you doing now? Because the other thing people are talking about now is this financial cliff. It's like, that's bad planning, my friend. You gotta, it's so the industry is changing right now. So if you look at what makes nonprofits sustainable, there are a couple of things. Number one, and we saw this during COVID, nonprofits have to be nimble. They have to be able to change quickly because the world we live in changes quickly, whether it is because of COVID or other things that happen. If what you're doing, I had one nonprofit that I've worked with, and I've worked with hundreds of nonprofits. One nonprofit had too much money. Okay. They owned oil wells. They had so much money. But what happened was and it wasn't Yale University. It was a small nonprofit. They never had to change. The whole world around them changed. They didn't change. And they became irrelevant. But they continued to provide irrelevant services. So you have to be able to change as the world changes. It's always about your mission. Have you all heard mission creep? Okay. You don't, you want to stay. And so I heard somebody this week say, don't be a mission creep. But your mission is your true north. It's what you need to stay focused on and deliver to. You have to connect. You have to connect with your donors. You have to connect with your staff. You need to connect with your board. But that connection, those relationships make nonprofits sing. And if you think with donors, I was head of a private foundation for a long time. And, I called the worst grantees, they were great people, but they were what I call Christmas card friends. Okay. That I would hear from them once a year. They'd send me a proposal and then I wouldn't hear from them for another year. It's hard to maintain a connection when that's all you're doing. You need to have diverse funding sources. This is really hard. But if you depend only on individuals and private donations, people get tired. So what happens is you start an organization, you have a great group of donors, then they start to get tired, right? And then they get old, and then they die. And if you haven't diversified your funding, every time somebody dies, you're going to fall off the cliff a little bit more. So you have to always be thinking of how to diversify your funding. And I'm going to using technology well. Okay.
We're all good at that.
Okay, yeah. We all try. And then just continuously learn. It's really important. Continuously change. So if you look at what are the areas that are most important what are those buzzwords in 2023? These are them. Accountability. You need to demonstrate how you are doing what you say you're doing. What is the impact you're having? And the other thing is, what's the impact you're having, and prove it. How do you use partnerships? Because you need to focus on your mission You can't do everything. So partner with other people who can. Plan what you want to do in 2 years and 3 years and 5 years. Plan your future. Have a vision for where you're going. And then the last thing is, I don't beat this horse really dead, but technology. You have to use technology. And by the way, see this note here? Okay. People we'll talk about clients about technology, and they'll tell me, they use Excel. Excel is not technology, just like a calculator is not technology. Okay, you need to do better than that. I know it's upsetting, but it's not. So just looking at, before you get that gold star, that IRS stamp of approval, you need some things. Number one, you need a board of directors. And think of that board of directors at the very beginning. And we're going to talk about this in a few minutes. But what that board looks like versus a very well-established board. You need a mission statement. And then you need activities, programs, services. It takes a while to get the IRS stamp of approval for a couple of reasons. You have to do work to get it. It's not just like, you couldn't say, well, Deborah, do you have like an hour and we can sit down and hash this out? It takes longer than that. And the other reason, which is not going to be a huge surprise, the IRS is a little slow. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know,
They take that money.
I they want that, but they're not giving it back as quickly. So we're going to talk a little bit about boards, because you need a board. If you look at the difference between a board and staff, I do trainings all the time and people don't understand it. Boards look at where you want to go, and the staff looks at how you're going to do it. Okay. Now, very beginning, oftentimes your board is your staff. So at the very beginning, all of this is one big blob. But as you grow, as you diversify, you make these distinctions become clearer. So if you look at what the board responsibilities are, I'm not going to read them, what shared responsibilities in the CEO, it's the board is responsible, sort of what happens in the boardroom. The CEO is responsible what happens in the workplace. And there's a lot of areas that they need to work together, including fundraising. You need a board that helps in that area, including really visioning the future. And I think that one of the most important things with the board staff, a relationship, is it has to be a trusting, strong partnership. There are boards and staff, boards and CEOs that actually, it's almost like they're in different corners of the boxing ring. I don't know how you have a good organization like that. I really don't. Okay, any questions so far before we go into life cycles? This is foundationally what nonprofits are. Any questions? Okay. Yes, Yvonne?
Okay to give people a little break?
Oh, sure.
5-minute break?
Sure. 5-minute break, sure.
Okay, so take away your question. Thank you. See you.
Oh, the recording? Yes.
All right, great. You're ready to go. Let's see, make sure we're on mute. Okay, awesome.
Okay. So if you look at nonprofits, it's like any organization. They don't just stay the same and steady state for eternity. So if we look at maybe, oh, here we go. If we nonprofits have different life stages. Okay, you have the idea. Somebody has a brilliant idea, according to them. Okay, so same here, and none of them are not profits. The brilliant idea, and then you take that idea and you start to form it into something, and then that idea gets roots and grows and becomes mature. And so there's we're going to go into each one of these little areas now. So the first stage is, I love this, the magnificent obsession. Okay. Somebody needs to feel real passion around something. And they must have an idea of the difference that they can make because of this passion, the difference they can make in the community. And you have this one person, and that one person grows to a small group of people who all share that same passion. Now, you have a lot more people in stage one that never get to stage two. Okay, the idea dies. That's okay. It's great to have the ideas. But those ideas that actually then start to get some traction, it becomes a real labor of love. The people who work there tend to be volunteers, they're bored. The board is what we call family and friends. They know each other, they love each other. Sometimes they're there because they love the founder. And so they want to just help their friend. Programs begin, you start getting a little money, and then you have to, those other not so fun functions like administration and financial management begin to grow. So then you have growth. And let me say one thing. Between stage 2 and stage 3, what is missing in this and what is missing in the power or the slide that had that pretty little chart is pain. Okay, there's great pain moving from stage 2 to stage 3, because stage 2 is very much a kumbaya stage. Everyone's in it together. Okay, stage 3, as you begin to grow, you need to change. You need to change your board. It can't just be family and friends. And when you change your board and bring other people in, what you are doing is you're bringing other opinions in. And they might not be in line, especially with the founder's opinion. Things get a little more complex. You need policies and procedures, not the most fun thing in the world to do. You need to diversify your funding. So all of a sudden, it's like it's like life is really there. You have to deal with not just the fun, great, exciting parts, but with the crappy parts too. Okay. Then you go into the mature stage. And in the mature stage, what you really want to do is keep your edge. You always want to be edgy. You always want to be innovating. You always want to be learning and creating. So in this stage, your programs are well established. You do things like track metrics. Your leadership has changed. It is no longer the founder. Again, a point of pain. The board starts acting like a board. In the first couple of stages, the board's doing everything. All of a sudden, the board is a governance board and they're setting policy and setting direction. You have multiple sources of income. There's some stability. Hopefully, you have, in nonprofits, they don't call it profit. Anyone know what you call if you have more revenue than expenses in nonprofits? This is like a trivia question. Nobody cares, but I'll tell you anyway. It's called excess revenue. So you have excess revenue. So this is a place a lot of people say this is where I want to get to as an organization. Okay, this is a great place. It's not as fun as some of the other stages. Yes, it's like the early stages are you're all in this war together, and this is much more. All of a sudden, you are a business. Now, what happens is, and just as in stage 4, it's about keeping your edge. It's about changing, because if you don't, you're going to have a problem. And what's going to happen is you're going to become less relevant. People are going to start voting with their feet. Your clients are going to stop coming. Your funders are going to stop coming. It's going to be harder to get board members. Staff leadership is complacent. Good enough is good enough. Those organizations that you say, why don't you try this? And they say, we tried that in 1985 and it didn't work. It was a real disaster. Okay. Well, it's a long time since 1985. And so this is a really, really sad place to be. This is a place that in my work, I've had to say to organizations when they, bring me in and the board will say, what should we do? And I say, you should close your doors. And that's really hard. But this is the place that you are before you need to close your doors. And then hopefully, let's say you realize I either have to change or close. And you say, we're going to do what we need to do and we're going to change. We're going to try for a turnaround. What you do is you most often have to change leadership, both staff leadership, but you also need different board leadership oftentimes. You need to focus on your culture, because we all know cultures get lazy. And so you need to reinvigorate that culture. You have to be honest. You have to be honest with your stakeholders, the people who care or should care about this organization. And you have to be honest both about where you are and how you're going to get out of it. Because if you have a sense of not where you are, but how you want to get out of it, people might support you. People might invest in that. But there's a real vulnerability involved in admitting that. This is not a stage you want to get to, okay? You want to stay at the mature stage for a long time. And so then, this is the in name only. You have organizations that they've just sort of lost everything, but they still exist. They still have their 501(c)(3). But it's just a matter of time that they should go out of business. Whether they have to or not depends a lot on their finances. So if you look at those nonprofit cycles or stages, where are some of your organizations?
Between growth and being mature, I think.
That's a good place. You need certain things I think let me just say one thing. To go from any stage to the next stage, you need to walk through the pain, because there's pain in walking through stages, and you have to be honest. And that also can be really difficult. But that's a great place to be.
I'm in the turnaround.
Oh,
I'm the new leader.
congratulations, Julie. How's it going?
It's been a month. I've been the new ED for a month.
Okay.
It is, I have an amazing team, which shows they're all logged on today.
Oh, good.
So one of the things was important for me is they all stayed. And so to me, that says a lot about their commitment to the mission of what the organization is about. And so it has been focusing on culture and focusing on bringing that some new energy and a vision. So it has been, that emoji where the head explodes.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
But it's been quite a learning curve going in, and but exciting.
I love it.
Very exciting. And like I said, I have an amazing team of women who are all on, and I think a piece of it too, which is again speaking a little bit about why wanting everyone to be a part of this workshop, is I felt it was important not only just for me to understand and know the nonprofit cycle and like all of the inner workings, but in full transparency, what I've said to all of them is like, we're the foundation. We're like the founding fathers of this organization now. And so they have just as much of an investment in it as I do. And so for everyone to really understand sort of these stages and like where we are and where we're trying to go.
Yep. I will just give you one little piece of advice. I'm not, but you and your group might really want to look at what will success look like in 6 months and what will success look like in a year. Define those so that you know where you're walking together. So we can chat other.
Mike told me to call you anyway, Deborah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Where are the rest of you? Where are you guys? Where are you?
So we're in the growth, fairly growth.
You're in, and how long have you been around?
10 years.
Okay, so let me just say something. There's no amount of time that you spend in every.
It's been a long time I started.
That's okay. That might get you better prepared to going into growth. It might be tiring, but it actually might be to your advantage. And what are you finding trying to go into growth?
Yeah, so when you mentioned about it might be tiring, I think if you stay in a place too long, you get you start to get a little burnout. Because and I'm finding that, so you kind of have to really work in to get the new team in place and new ideas, because I think it's that then sort of excites you again. To go. I think that, and then even though it's almost counterintuitive, because you think, oh no, we're more plans, bigger ideas, and more work is gonna be more tiring, but actually that's what kind of feeds you. That's what gives you the energy to actually do it. Yeah, so we're kind of like, we just, I've just sort of built a new team, put together a new board, and we've got the energy back. So it's like, and it's a great team, so that excites me.
Beautiful. Good luck. It's in that. I mean, it's exciting though. It's because you really can. It takes time, it takes energy, sometimes too much energy. But to be going into growth is that's a good place. So, about others. About anyone on Zoom? Okay. So I think that if you look at your organization and look at where you are and where you want to go, and as Yvonne said, you're going to get this PowerPoint deck. Just use it as just to help you frame your thoughts, frame the areas that you need to focus on as you move forward. So, Yvonne, right back to you.
Thank you, Deborah. You are fantastic. I admire the work that you do so much, and this is the time in which we ask questions. And whether you have any departing thoughts, things that you want to share. So any questions for the audience, for either Deborah or me? I actually do have a question for you, Deborah.
Okay.
So you do quite a bit of work with nonprofits on doing strategic planning
Yes.
for the organizations.
Mhm.
When do you think is the right time for organizations to do strategic planning, and how often?
Yeah. Okay. So, how many of you have a strategic plan right now?
In the works. like,
In the
yeah.
works. Okay. So I think that there are a lot of ways to do strategic plans. Okay. So I'm going to go back for a minute. My guess, if you want to do a full-blown strategic plan, you're going to do it once you're in the growth area and always in the maturity area, you should be living off of a strategic plan. Okay. What happens is in the startup to growth area, it's great to have a strategic plan, but oftentimes, just to be, really honest, you can't afford one. Okay. Honestly, I remember one time, for example, so let me just say one thing. I'm an open book. You want to know something, ask me. I'll tell you, does anyone want to know how much a strategic plan costs? Okay. If you're doing a full strategic plan, it's about $40,000. Okay. How many of you can afford that right now? Okay. So that doesn't mean it's all or nothing. There are smaller pieces of a strategic plan that you can do that might cost $5,000, might cost, but it's a smaller number. And so you should work yourself into a full strategic plan. But if you can't do a full one, and there are people who charge less than us, so don't go home and like, I can never do that. You can, there are other people, and other really good people. But you might say, okay, what we're going to focus on is we're going to focus on where we want to be in 12 months and 24 months. And we're going to focus on what our goals and our strategies are. That's it. And we're going to do a board retreat that's the only focus. That's going to be 6 hours. Okay. You can get a lot done, and that can actually help you as a roadmap moving forward. So I think that you want to do a strategic plan as early as you can and when you can afford it. I will also say that there are funders who will give you capacity building grants to do planning. Okay? And it's so there are. You have to ask them nicely and stuff, but people but people, often will do that. Yes.
Those strategic plans, are they for 5 or 10 years?
What fantastic question. We tend to do strategic plans that are very detailed for about 3 years and then have an outline for years 4 and 5. I think that 10 years, it's too far down the road. But I think 3 years is a sweet spot with ideas for beyond that.
That goes back to what you were saying, Deborah, that the environment for nonprofits is constantly changing.
Yes, it is.
So making a plan that is too long, you will be outdated, right? And sometimes in the plans, it's still the change within it.
How do you feel for those organizations who we did strategic plans for and finished them in February 2020? What do you think happened to those plans? They're like, and we do really very focused plans that have, a dashboard. After March of 2020, everything went up. And so you have to be adept and yes.
Does it matter the size of the nonprofit to create a strategic?
No. And you heard a qualified no, right? There has to be enough bulk to create a strategic plan. There needs to be enough there in order to do it. And so that's why I think that if you're really, really in startup, I would say this isn't the time. And so, yes.
Does it matter if applying for funding to have a strategic plan in place?
Okay, well, that's a different kind of question. Funders like to see strategic plans. Okay. And one of the things when this was a learning for us that we did a strategic plan probably 8 years ago. And at the end, the organization said, we would like to invite everyone who was part of the environmental scan, which are the people you talk to at the beginning of the strategic planning process. We want to invite them to a breakfast and present the plan. And I'm like, okay, I mean, we'll come, we'll present the plan. There can be like 2 people there, but we'll come. There were 50 people there. The next time we did it, there were 150 people there for another organization. It is people care. And they want to know what your future is. So funders definitely want to know what your future is. Because that's what they're investing in. Any other questions before I run off on this Friday afternoon? Great. Well, thank you for inviting me on. I'll see you next month.
And have a good weekend.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
And we have your contract information.
I'll put it in the PowerPoint as well.
I have.
Yes.
I think
So I really appreciate that you were part of this. Deborah is coming back next month and she's going to be talking about boards. Please answer the survey that we're going to be sending to see how you like the presentation. I'm sure you loved it because she's fantastic. Please let us know also in our survey what other things you want to hear about, right? We are here for the long run, and although we have done a long number of presentations, there's always something new, something that comes up that we can learn, and we can create presentations for that. So unless you have any questions, I'll let you go 20 minutes earlier to enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for the people that were in the Zoom call for joining us, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members,
Bye.
encouraged to come to the next